Welcome to the Digital DJ Tips Your Questions podcast. This episode, as always, is full of questions asked by real DJs wanting help with their hobby. These are from the live audience at the recording of the podcast, handpicked from our students. So thank you very much to everyone who attended and who asked a question this time around. The questions range from, do I really need my platters to spin around on my DJ gear? After all, they stopped doing that on pro gear quite a long time ago. Is it important? If I need to play a pro gig and I'm used to playing on cheap hobby equipment, is it worth actually having a practice on it first so that I don't trip up when I step up in front of that audience for the first time? And among the other questions was a great one about, should I be using AI to help me choose music for my DJ sets? After all, we use AI for all kinds of things nowadays. Why not use it to help in DJing? We have a heated, in the most civilized way, discussion about the pros and cons of doing just that. This is 100% funded by the students of Digital DJ Tips. So again, thank you to you. And if you enjoy this, I'll tell you at the end how you can get closer to all of this and maybe ask a question yourself. Meanwhile though, let's get started. Our first question is from Sam Duncan. Thank you, Sam, who says, does anyone know of a tool for migrating DJ Pro playlists to Serato? My caveat is that most of the tracks in DJ Pro that I want to migrate to Serato are Apple Music streaming tracks. So this is a question about the difficulty of DJing on one system when your particular software is on another. And we have in the house Mixmaster G, one of the world's experts on this, who makes the DJ conversion utility, which is a Mac utility to help with this kind of thing. Mixmaster G, I will wait for you to pipe up. If the students' songs are in Apple Music streaming, can your apps help the student to move their Apple Music streaming cue points and so on to a different system? And I'll leave that one hanging there and get back to you, Sam, because as I say, we have someone in the house who knows an awful lot more than I do about that. Ken, your question is coming up. I notice you in the live chat, who says, greetings, it's been a while since I've had time to make it. Well, here you are. And there's the confirmation we were looking for. If you want to convert your music from one platform to another, even if it's Apple Music streaming, then the DJ conversion utility, just go Google DJCU, has you covered as long as you're on a Mac. I'm not sure if the other utilities that are out there do it. I know that Lexicon DJ is good at this kind of thing, but whether it does it with streaming services, I don't know. But if you're not on a Mac, that might be one to look at as well. So Ken's in the house, and I'm going to therefore go straight to Ken's question next. All these questions asked by our fantastic students here at Digital DJ Tips, of course. So Ken says, I'd like to talk about shaping sounds and how to build energy and tension with transitions. It's a great topic, Ken. So let's talk at a high level about how to build energy and tension in a DJ set. So there's a few variables here. So let's talk about the things you can do on your equipment to do this. The biggest single tool you have is the volume, because volume is the thing that people notice changes in first, and volume is the thing that you can very subtly take away only to throw it back again. And when you do that, you will instantly lift the energy in the room. One of the tricks I used to use all the time when I was DJing, probably in every single DJ set, was just to very, very slowly take the volume down when I knew that there wasn't relatively an awful lot going on in the next, let's say, 5 minutes or 10 minutes of a DJ set. There were songs people didn't know so well, or there were songs where there wasn't an awful lot that was going to happen. They were my filler, not my killer. And then I would put the volume back up to the loudest I know it could go when I came to something that I knew was gonna hit hard. And that extra boost in volume really made a difference. Another way of doing this is just to do that with the bass. You can take the bass down gently and then put it back in again. I always tell the story of the time the bass amps overheated in our club one very hot summer's night because the aircon failed in the room where all the amplifiers were. They were in their own room at the top of the stairs on the way into the club. And this room contained stacks of amps and the amps overheated. And the amps that will always go first in that situation are the bass amps. So the bass amps, 1, then 2, popped out, leaving just the main amps going. And the room suddenly sounded very thin and people were kind of like, what's going on? But you know what? People get used to it. So while we were rushing around trying to fix it, we had to go and get a portable aircon unit from the apartment above the nightclub and put that in the amp room with its kind of hose, its kind of big thick vacuum hose thing poking out. When we were sorting that out, we just carried on DJing. What else can you do? But then I got the nod that the bass amps were back again. But what I did was turn the bass down in the DJ booth. And even though the bass amps were back on again, no one knew because I turned the bass down, because I was saving it for the moment when I was going to play a big track, which is exactly what I did. I got to the breakdown on a big track, brought the bass up when there was no bass playing because it was the breakdown. And then when that drop kicked, it was the biggest cheer I think any DJ set I've ever played got, because suddenly all the bass bins were working again. So look, volume's a big one to play with. Bass is a big one to play with. As soon as you take it away, it builds tension. And as soon as you drop it back, it's a release, it's energy, it's back to how things should be. So another way of doing that with kind of one knob on a DJ controller is the filter knob, because filter will effectively take away all the presence. If you put a low pass filter, which is the one that leaves the bass there but makes it sound muffled, it makes it sound like you put your hands over your ears or gone into the next room. You can still kind of feel the bass, but you can't, it's like the music's moved further away from you, right? Using that control can be a really nice way of taking the energy out. And this is kind of nice when you're getting to a part in the track that's maybe got a bit more room in it, right? So it's not a breakdown. There's still a kick drum. There's probably still a bass line playing, but there's not an awful lot extra going on. So taking that control down and basically giving people the chance to talk, because everything's still pumping away, the energy's still there, but people can kind of look at each other and have a few words, and then you can bring it back in again. And of course, in the other direction, which takes out the bass but leaves the higher frequencies, a filter control will give you another feel. It will be almost like my bass amp's failing feel. So these are good things to play with. Another thing that you can play with to shape your sound is reverb. Now this works really well with the volume, because you can actually turn a track off and leave a long reverb on and then bring the track back again. And this can work well just to cut things up and make people think, oh, what's happening? But also reverb has this feel of making stuff feel a bit further away, making stuff feel a bit indistinct, right? So here in the Digital DJ Tips studio, we're on the 3rd floor of quite a large building. And I always like to take the stairs up and down because I'd like to try and keep fit, keep my legs working. But that stairwell there's nothing in there. It's just like a long stairwell, long as in vertically long. So you can imagine what the reverb is like in there. It's so much that you can't actually hear your conversations with other people. I just can't hear because the reverb is so big. And that's what using reverb in your DJ sets can do. And especially if you put a reverb on and then turn the track off and wait 1, 2, 3, 4, bring it on again. This is chopping things up. This is creating tension, but it's a nice tension. It feels good. It's not just like cutting the volume. So you can play with reverb in transitions. And then what you always want, and this is the key thing, what you always want is that when that kick drum comes in at the beginning of the drop, you've had your fun. You've messed around in the transition. You've added reverb. You've used filters to either take the bass away or take the clarity away or whatever. You get to that drop, the bit everyone knows, the bit where the producer has made sure that every element in that track that's worth knowing about is playing at once. Make sure you've turned all that stuff off. Make sure that your sound system is set so it sounds brilliant. All the frequencies are there. There's no effects. It's just the track as intended. Because if you don't do that, then you won't have a big release. You won't have that massive energy moment. You'll have confusion, right? So always respect the 1 beat when you're messing around with stuff. So a few ideas coming in the chat about this. The Ruckus says using a loop during a breakdown can help. And if you continue to halve the loop and halve the loop and halve the loop and halve the loop, yes. And then have a cue point on the drop. So you can halve that loop so the actual track never reaches the drop until you drop it in with a cue point. That can work really well. Just extending the length of a breakdown by looping it can be enough. Because if you do that, it gives you a chance to build the tension with some of the things that we've talked about here as well. So enjoy playing around in your breakdowns, Ken. But also enjoy just generally in your sets. You know, what we always like to do when we're DJing is we don't want to hold the energy level. We want to have the energy coming up and down. So over the night, there's this kind of macro up and down because you're going to build slowly, 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 slowly to a peak, hold it there for a bit, and then at the end of the night, just dip slightly to let people know things are ending. And within that big arc, you're going to have smaller versions of the same. 2 or 3 tracks building to a peak and something to release the tension. 2 or 3 building to a peak, something to release the tension. When you're doing that little build to a mini peak and then another mini peak and another mini peak, that's when you're going to be reducing the volume so you can drop it in again when that big track drops. One of my favorite DJs back in the day used to have a real skill of picking really good tracks to play between the killer tracks, you know, really good tracks that complemented the big tracks. So don't always try and play tracks everyone knows all the time. It'll exhaust people. Try and find tracks that complement them and that work with them to give people a chance to breathe. And that's where you're going to reduce the volume a little bit. Ryan's question is this. Hi Phil, I've got my first open decks gig coming up. It's a 1 hour set. Now I usually play on the Denon Prime Go, which is a nice small little DJ unit for those listening in out of curiosity rather than out of actually doing this stuff. Welcome, by the way, our casual curious listeners. However, Ryan's problem is this. This open decks night is on professional Pioneer DJ gear. I've been practicing beat mixing without looking at the waveforms. Very good, Ryan. I've also been practicing on a DDJ 400. Again, this is a piece of equipment that is a little bit more similar to club gear than the stuff that Ryan normally uses, basically because it's kind of laid out in the same way, but it's still very different. I've also migrated my library to Rekordbox. Good. However, my question is this. Should I get some practice on actual CDJs before the gig? Or is it fairly easy to adapt from a DDJ 400 or indeed from any other gear? Anything in particular I should look out for? It's a great question, and it's one we get asked an awful lot as a DJ school. Ultimately, DJing is very simple. DJing is 2 sources of music, a way of mixing between them, a way of hearing the other one in your headphones to get it ready, and a way of getting that music out to your audience. Any DJ setup can do that. If your music is available to you, Ryan, yours is, because you've said that. You said you've got your Rekordbox library already. Then you're going to be all right. However, there's a big caveat here. You would be all right to stand up there and get the music playing and cut out the gaps. But this is a 1 hour slot at an open decks night. I'm going to guess you want to hit the ground running here. So I would say definitely it's worth trying to get some practice time on actual CDJs. The things that will trip you up are the muscle memory as to where stuff is. Because a little DJ controller, it's almost like hunching over a laptop keyboard compared to a big DJ setup, which is kind of like spreading your shoulders and putting your hands wide and using something that feels full-sized compared to hunching over a little DJ controller. Just that very difference, that way you stand and the way your hands fall on deck 1 and deck 2 to the left and right of you is very, very different on pro gear, on full-size gear. So just to get used to that. But also, conversely, the screen is going to be a lot smaller than you're used to because the screens on CDJs are little screens with smaller waveforms and they show less of your library. Whereas on a laptop system, the screen's very big. Now, you're lucky, Ryan, in your case, you are used to DJing on a similar setup with a small screen, but it's not that setup. So that again is worth doing. Now, when you want to see your tracks playing together, that's very easy on laptops because a laptop has a nice big chunk right at the very top of the screen with huge waveforms, the width of the screen that are smoothly scrolling past, and you can see where the breakdowns are, you can see that the beats are lined up, you can see all the colors showing you the different frequencies. Now on CDJs, on pro DJs, equipment, conversely, I mean, they're getting better, but still they're smaller screens and they're separate from each other. And so the way that you can kind of look at what's going on each track is different. So again, the speed of searching and browsing for tracks on smaller screens might trip you up. Having that stuff in different places, each unit has got its own feedback rather than it all on one unified screen. And also just little things like the way the controls are laid out. The cue points are in different places, and that might trip you up as well. So it probably is worth, now most towns and cities have several places where you can just go and spend a few pounds or euros or dollars and spend an hour on a setup like this, and there's nearly always someone there who can talk you through it. It's really worth doing. Failing that, we have training tutorials on the CDJs. Just go and look for our CDJ 3000 training tutorial. That will get you covered. You don't need one for your particular CDJ. They're all very similar. That one would just show you where everything is. And so they are two things that I would recommend that you do, just because I want you to hit the ground running, Ryan. The truth is, if someone dropped you in at the deep end in a club with a USB drive on that was full of music that would work in a pro system, which you've already got, and said, off you go, you would be very nervous, but you'd find your feet quite quickly. But I'd like you to find your feet quicker than that, because, hey, you've only got an hour. So some advice coming in from the community: just watch YouTube footage of DJs playing on CDJs. If you can't rent equipment in front, and that'll give you some ideas, says DJ Parallax. I love that as well. Ken says, always remember how to turn on deck lock. My first time out on CDJs, I forgot and I loaded a track in the middle of the mix. We've all done it. I've taken the needle off the actual record that's playing so many times. Some stores have DJ gear set up with demo modes that you can play with. Yeah, thank you for that. But a few of you saying in the chat that it really is a good idea to actually get that experience yourself ahead of time. You know, quite often you can just go to the venue and say, or the person organising the night and say, is it all right if I come for half an hour before you open? Help you set up even, and then once we've done that, just have a quick play. It's worth it. I really hope you have a good gig there, Ryan. It sounds like a lot of fun. Do come back to us and let us know. So another Sam, thank you to Sam Elevate for this question. Sam says, what's the best way to get used to moving platters? I'm looking for a new controller that's more pro grade. I've loved my entry-level gear for years, but it's got small platters that do not rotate. I've tried a few that do. I've tried the Rain 1, but I found I couldn't perform the tighter scratch techniques on that. I've tried the Rev 7, but the jogs felt digital and didn't feel quite like I would expect a turntable to feel. So what do you recommend? What's the best way to get used to them? Okay, so Sam, let's give you a bit of a reality check here. You just name checked two of the very, very best digital DJ units that have rotating platters on them in the market. Both of the models you mentioned feel uncannily like using real turntables. Yes, they're only small 7-inch rather than full-size turntables, but they're very, very good. So I'm going to give you a bit of tough love and say it's not the gear that's holding you back or that's making you sound how you're sounding. It's perfectly possible to perform like an absolute professional at the top of their game on both of those units. So I would say to you, go and have another go and just work on your technique rather than worrying about whether the gear is good enough. It is. That said, it is very different, especially if you're not used to it, using moving platters when you're used to using anything from CDJs to DJ controllers that have platters that don't go round. The ultimate truth here is that they don't have to go round. The reason they went round in the first place was because there was a record on it with a needle that had to be dragged through the groove, otherwise you wouldn't hear anything. If DJ gear was invented in the digital age, I think they would settle on jog wheels because they exist in all kinds of places where you need to move quickly through media. They exist in production studios, they exist in video production studios. I've got one on the desk right in front of me right now that we use here at Digital DJ Tips when we're producing our videos. Jog wheels are a very intuitive way of quickly, slowly, very fine, very coarsely moving backwards and forwards through your tracks. So I think jog wheels would have existed, but would motorized ones have existed? No. When I go to edit a video on my video editing software and I click into the waveform, does the jog wheel start rotating and I'm kind of larging it up on the decks? Of course it doesn't. You don't need rotating platters to DJ. It's perfectly possible to scratch and sound indistinguishable from people who are using rotating platters on static platters. That said, for a lot of people, having a rotating platter and a piece of vinyl under their fingers is what DJing is about. And I'm certainly not here to tell you that that is not worth pursuing. In fact, I'm going to tell you the opposite, Sam. If you are worried that the experience you're having on rotating platters is not the same as using vinyl, then go and buy yourself 2 turntables and a mixer and use timecode vinyl and control your DJ software that way. Because then it is real turntables, then it is going to feel like real turntables. Serato, through a Serato compatible mixer and a pair of decent direct drive turntables, is going to feel, to all intents and purposes, indistinguishable from DJing on vinyl. And honestly, if I'm playing that way, that's what I prefer. I just like it. It just reminds me of the good old days of DJing on vinyl. But it is very different, and you really, really don't need it, trust me. The rest of the time, when I've re-scratched that vinyl itch, I go back to a static platter DJ setup because I find it easier. I find that I can get to where I want to get to in the record more easily. I find I can start the turntables where I want them to start more easily. And I just don't see the point of having that platter rotating. And this is from someone who used vinyl from the age of 15 to the age of about 28, right? So I had nearly 15 years playing vinyl before I transitioned to CDJs, which don't have moving platters. And then finally to controllers. So good luck with that, Sam. Whatever you use, you're talking about some really fantastic DJ gear there. So stop worrying about probably imagined nuances and just enjoy it. You've got some great kit there. Enjoy learning all the skills on it. Ken says, I learned on vinyl and the newest CDJ from Pioneer has a scratch mode. Yes, they've had scratch modes for a long time, Ken. It does feel, even though they're not going round, it does feel very much like vinyl. Ryan is with us live, who says, thank you everyone. I'm sold. I will be sure to try out some CDJs if possible beforehand. And also the idea to look at videos of people using them is very good. Thank you for the tips. It takes a while to get used to scratching on jog wheels, but it can happen. Thank you for that, Parallax. I do use both turntables and controllers myself. Either way, you're just as authentic when you're rocking the crowd. Fact. I agree. It doesn't matter what gear you're using. And Chris says DVS if you want to really get that feel. I recently set up my dual CD players from the 90s, says Ken. One of them with the first pitch bump sync on them. Yes, so there were CD players that looked more like hi-fi separates that again had tiny little jog wheels on the front of them, vertical little jog wheels that you kind of had to bend down and use to quickly find the place you wanted on the track. Thank you for that memory there as well. Arriving late in our live chat here, this is as always in front of a live student audience. Hello Jeffrey in Stockport, my hometown. Jeffrey, how's the viaduct? He says, I'm sorry I'm late. Well, as a local lad, I can't tell you off for being late, but in all seriousness, you can catch the replay for a month inside the student group, inside Student Hub to all of our students. And you can also find the edited version on our podcast platform, both in audio and video, the video version over on YouTube, the audio version everywhere you normally get your podcasts. So there we go. I'm waiting on the Reloop 10 Pro. I think that's the name. If you need bigger platters, they haven't released it yet. No, I'd forgotten that they'd announced it, to be honest. But yes, I do believe, if my memory serves me correctly, there is a big 10-inch DJ setup on its way. And Richard says, bring back the Twitch. I was talking about the Twitch the other day. The Twitch was the first DJ controller ever to be released by Novation, and also the last one to be released by Novation, the company that's better known for its audio interfaces and actually Focusrite is its audio interface division, but it's keyboards and its production stuff. It was a DJ controller that didn't have jog wheels at all. Instead, it had a touch strip. It had this little strip that you could it had inertia. So you could put your hand on the strip and you could flick your finger left or right, and it would be like spinning a jog wheel. It would then speed up and slow down when you took your finger off it. The waveform would have a kind of inertia. And I actually really liked the Twitch. It had some pretty dubious build quality, But it was small, it was compact, and I loved that touch strip. However, no one else did, and the thing died a death, so I don't think it will be coming back. But anyway, there we go. And Ken is pointing out that the sync button tends to work differently on controllers to CDJs. Yes, slightly differently, back to what we were talking about earlier. And there's another controller that's got motorized jog wheels, which is the Tractor Control S4. Thank you for a couple of people for pointing that one out. And the thing with that one that's quite interesting is it looks like a static jog wheel. It doesn't look like a vinyl setup at all. It hasn't got vinyl on the top or anything, but it still spins around. I actually quite like that. I found that quite fun. And a few of you are pointing out that Pioneer DJ has a turntable called the Cross 12, which has got the best of both worlds. It lets you play real vinyl. It's got a proper arm that lets you play real vinyl, and it is a real turntable. It's 12 inches in size, but it can also control out of the box your DJ software as well. So thank you everyone for pointing that out. And a few of you are saying, didn't Steve at Digital DJ Tips scratch on a little platter once? Yes, he did. We were doing a promo for our Scratching for Controller DJs course. And in Scratching for Controller DJs, the whole premise was you can scratch like a pro DJ using any DJ controller. And Steve got the smallest DJ controller you can get, which was the tiny little thing from Newmark. We literally had platters that were more the size of a, in fact, they were smaller than a coaster. And he scratched a really good performance on it. So yes, you can scratch on those things. It doesn't really matter if you know what you're doing. Thank you for pointing that out. So many memories. In fact, here's something I can tell you before we move on to the next question. Steve and I got together. For those who aren't our students, Steve is my co-tutor here at Digital DJ Tips. We got together yesterday to record a couple of podcast specials. So over the summer, we closed the studio when school's out, literally when school's out, we lock up this studio, we unplug the routers and the equipment and the computers and stuff, and we head out and we chill out for a few weeks. And so we record podcasts and we record stuff to release and share with you guys, so that all the channels are busy over that time. And this time we've recorded a couple of specials. And they're kind of reminiscing. They're longer than normal. They turn this like an hour long each. The first one is Steve and me reminiscing about our stories from before Digital DJ Tips, so before 2010. So we were DJs before then. We were in the music industry professionally for 16 years before that point. So we share stories about music, about gear, about mixing, about performing, about success from our lives before we were DJs. And then the second podcast in this series is since 2010. So it's all the same things, but since we've been running Digital DJ Tips, our stories are again around gear and music and mixing and performing and success since we formed the website. So I'm really looking forward to sharing those with you. We dragged up memories that I couldn't have dragged up without someone sat next to me talking about all this stuff. So look forward to those. And speaking of chatting live, Cabes says, I noticed that you're not doing public Tuesday and Thursday shows anymore. I rather like them. Is there any plan to do that again? Well, yes, we're doing it right now. And we also do it with our Inside Track show. So every 2 weeks there is a live show here, but it's only for our students, and then they get edited to make the version that we share in public. We just wanted to put that effort into doing stuff for our students rather than in public, basically, Cabes. So that was the plan. Those jog wheels, says the Ruckus on that tiny controller, were the size of cookies, not placemats, indeed. And please, says Ken, bring back those balcony beats sessions that you did during COVID. We were talking about that yesterday. All of us DJs here at Digital DJ Tips during COVID, we played live every Sunday. We all took turns, and they were great, weren't they? I had to creep to the studio to bring equipment and live streaming gear and stuff back to my home and not get caught to set up and do that. They were great sessions. They're still on Mixcloud, by the way. My Mixcloud under my own name, Phil Morse, has still got all those sessions on it. Okay, less of the chat, more of the questions. This is a question that I am not going to reveal the person who said it, just because lots of people ask something similar, and I don't want to make an example of someone, or give tough love and have everyone else saying, no, I don't think that way. Not that anyone would, but hey, I've left the name off this one. So one of our students said this: Phil, it's all very well you advising us to know our libraries and pack our crates carefully and go off instincts when we're picking the next track to play in our sets. But you've got 30 years of experience to draw on in order to be able to do that. And I haven't, and I find it really hard knowing what to play next. So while you say we shouldn't be using AI tools to plan our sets and to decide what tracks we should be choosing from, I would really love to use an AI tool to give me options for choosing the right track to play next. What are your thoughts on this? Now, before I answer this, I'm going to throw this open to our students who are here with us live, because this is the big question at the moment that is dominating the forum, it's dominating our student chat groups, and it's dominating the wider world. I see it talked about over on Reddit. I see it talked about in other places where we hang out with students and with other DJs. And the question is really simple. Has AI got a place in helping DJs plan and play their DJ sets? We have been kind of trying to figure out why this is happening now, because AI has been around for a couple of years, right? You can say to AI, hey, I'm playing a wedding with, you can talk about the people who are there. You can talk about where the bride and groom are from. What music do you recommend? You've been able to do this with ChatGPT for a long time. But just recently, it really has become a bit of a heated topic. It's almost like it's the new, should I use the sync button or not? And I think the reason that this has happened is that people are vibe coding apps. Claude Code has got really good, for instance. So there's a plethora of new apps that are popping up that people are using in order to vibe code, right? So, and we're seeing a lot of people who are, I would say, very techie, and maybe more techie than they are performing DJs, who are kind of, and I'm going to reveal my thoughts, but accidentally now, if you like, they're solving problems that I would say don't exist, right? Just because they can, and vibe coding's fun. And you can get your record box database and you can run AI on it and extract all kinds of useful information. But when we do this stuff, my question is always, why are we doing it? We have to be crystal clear why we're doing it. So to the question then, the student says, look, knowing what to play next is hard. Phil, you give us lots of techniques in the courses where you help us to narrow things down, so to not be like rabbits in headlights with this whole list of 5,000 tunes in front of us. But it's still hard. And the reason it's hard is that you've got experience and I haven't. And so I want to use AI to help me. Why can't I? Is the gist of the question. So here is my answer to that at the moment, and it might change. The reason that I find it fun, or I still find it hard, but the reason I also find it fun when I'm DJing in front of other people to choose the track that I want to play next is that I have got 30 years of experience. That's right. But my 30 years of experience is 30 years of choosing the next track to play myself, not using an AI to do it. Because if I'd spent the last 30 years asking an AI, two things would have happened. One, I would have lost any flow, and probably I'd have got bored of it quite quickly. But two, I would never have taken the stabilizer wheels off. I'd never have learned to do it for myself. The fact that I find it easy now is because I've spent 30 years struggling with it. And so I would say to you, the tools that we give you here as a DJ school to make this easier are the ones which will make it as easy as possible before it's time for you to step in and do the bit that only a human can do. Very simply, the way we teach knowing what to play next in a DJ set is this. Firstly, have a small fit for purpose music collection. Every single track in your DJ library should be a track you know well, you know why it's in there, and you've played out within the last year, or you're thinking of playing out within the next year. If not, that track does not belong in your library. Just apply, and listen to every track all the way through before you add it to your library. And crucially, listen to every track all the way through before you take it away from your library, because you might be going through throwing stuff away. And actually, if you just gave it a listen, you'd realize It's actually brilliant. So that's your library. Now, when it comes to, and make sure the tracks are all properly labeled, you've got your genres right, you've got your years right, you've got your, all that stuff right. Once you've done that, when it's time to play a gig, when you have a gig booked, when you've got something in the diary, spend an awful long time packing your crate. Have a playlist or a crate where you're putting tracks in there that you think might work at that particular gig. If you're not sure whether they'll work, ask yourself, listen to them, but ask yourself, why am I not sure? Is it because I'm not sure who's going to be there? In that case, find out. Is it because you don't know the venue? In that case, go down there, or follow DJs who do play there and figure it out. Our tutor James Hype calls this pre-reading the crowd, doing your research before you get there. Ultimately, you want to know what you're going to be coming up against, right? And then pack exactly twice the amount of music that you're going to need. This is the crucial rule. Yes, you're going to have all your music with you, but that doesn't matter. Pack a crate of twice the amount of music you're going to need. If it's a 2-hour gig and you play 25 tracks in every hour, then you're going to need 50 tracks times 2. You're going to need 100 tracks. So pack a crate of just 100 tracks and be very, very mindful of every track. Don't just throw stuff in there. And then look at that crate and say, if an older crowd or a younger crowd or a different crowd or just a random crowd turn up, and if hip hop isn't working, what am I going to do? Or if house isn't working, what am I going to do? Or if they want pop and I've only got underground, or if they want underground, I've only got pop. If they want stuff they know and I've only got stuff they don't know. If they want something a bit more edgy, but I've only got commercial stuff, what am I going to do? And do these twice the number of tunes I need, allow me to go off on these tangents and allow me to play something I wasn't expecting to play. Because you will play something you weren't expecting to play, because you're not going to play all those songs. You're only going to play half of them by definition, right? If you do everything I just said before every gig, I can guarantee to you, anonymous student, that you will have a reasonably good idea what to play next for every transition. Another tip that we share with our students on our more advanced training is to divide your music into mini sets. So a mini set could be 2, 3, 4, 5 songs that you tend to play together. And that way you're moving from mini set to mini set rather than track to track. So in other words, once you've hit a mini set, play those tracks. It's 10 minutes, it's 15 minutes. Play those tracks. Don't worry about it. Have fun. And then move on to the next mini set. It kind of turns down the heat on you having to find a new song every 2 minutes or whatever. If you do all of those things, then there's no reason why you can't be learning the skills of DJing, learning to read a crowd, learning to know what to play next without outsourcing that job to an AI. I'm a runner. I am a serious club runner and I go and run races and I put an awful lot of effort into my running. But if I outsourced my training to an AI, I would not run those races well. So I know that's a bit of a silly example, but I'm sure you see the correlation. DJing is hard and you get better at DJing by doing it. Running is hard and you get better at running by doing it. These things weren't meant to be easy. And the fact that you're finding them hard is really, really good. Because if you're finding them hard, A, you care, and B, that problem is putting itself in front of you in order that you can solve it. So our advice is designed to make that process easier, but not to help you bypass that process. Now, that said, if you find that using AI tools when you're at home to help you find tracks that go together, or you want to mix and you really want to practice your mixing and you don't want to worry about what track should I play next, because let's face it, who cares? You're at home. I think they're brilliant for that. Use them for that. Also, use the recommendation tools that are built into your software. Use the tools that can find you songs that are in a similar or a compatible key and that are close by in BPM. There's nothing wrong with all this stuff, but the crucial difference is, if you're in front of a crowd of people, look at the crowd of people. Ask yourself, if I was on that dance floor, what would I want to hear next? Because ultimately, that's what DJing is. DJing is, if you boil it down, DJing is about picking the right song to play next and then doing it again. Just like running is about putting one foot in front of the other foot and doing it again. You can't outsource that basic stuff to anything else and still improve as a DJ, because you're stalling as a DJ. And the worst bit is, if you're using an AI to plan and to even help perform your DJ sets, it's not a very big leap from there to the person who booked you realizing that they can just press play on the AI and it can do your job for you. So remember that. Our job is to add the thing that the AI never can. This is where I'm at right now with this, but this is a rolling topic. In our newsletter this week, I asked, vibes or vibe coding was my kind of clever little way of doing it, or instinct or, instinct or rules. And I got loads of responses to that, which I've been going through this morning actually. And it's kind of fine-tuned my thinking on it. One of the things that came out of that was what I just told you, which is using these tools behind closed doors can be a great thing. Jazzy Jeff said the same kind of thing. Give everyone what they want by playing mini sets, says Ken. I did a weekly global radio show live, and I have to use a framework to do that. I know what genres I'm going to use, but I just pick a couple of songs and the rest comes off the cuff. Yeah, having a framework's great. Having a framework is what it's all about. That's why we get you to think about your collections and plan your sets. But you're not planning every track and every transition. You're planning a rough outline of what you're going to do. This has always been the case. Back in the day, we used to have a record crate, right? We'd have a box. And we couldn't take all our music with us. So for most gigs, we'd take one box. And if it was a very special gig, we'd take two. We'd go through our whole collection. And our collection at home would be meticulously organised. We'd go through a whole collection and we'd pull out the songs we wanted to play. But we wouldn't just throw them in the box. We'd then put them in a rough order. Which ones do I want to play early? Which ones do I want to play later on? So then we'd have a pre-planned set. And obviously we'd take more music than we needed because that really was a hard stop. We couldn't just go to a hard drive and get the stuff that we didn't pack. That's, if you haven't got it, you can't play it. So at that point, you've got a well thought out DJ set with you on a box of records. But it didn't stop there because we would go through our music very quickly. So you'd play you'd think, oh, what do I need to play next? What do I need to play next? You'd have an eye on the dance floor. You'd think, I'm going to go disco house. You'd find the disco house record that you want to transition into. You'd put that on and it hit well. And you think, okay, disco house, disco house, disco house. You'd go to your collection and you'd quickly go through the whole collection. You'd only go through the part that was near the energy level, the time of night you were at, because you'd put them in a rough order, and you'd be looking for similar disco house songs, and you'd pull 2 or 3 out halfway, right? There's your mini set. They're the ones I'm going to play next. So now you're not going to go through the whole collection. You're not going to go through the whole box. You're going to play those 2 or 3 songs. And then when you play those 2 or 3 songs, then there's nothing else pulled out. And what I used to do was pull them all the way out once I played them and put them right to the back of the box. So I know that anything at the back I've already played. And then when you ran out of stuff, you'd go to the whole set again and you'd find something else that you wanted to play. And then again, you'd pull out another little mini set. So look, this is all the old-fashioned analog version of what I've just been talking to you about on digital. And in my heart, I think it's a much, much better way of doing this than using an AI tool in that situation. And that's where we're going to leave it for today. I hope you enjoyed that. If you're new to Digital DJ Tips and to our school and you want to get closer to what we do, head over to digitaldjtips.com. Click the big join button and we will join you up for free. Then we can let you know when these events happen and we'll give you a free copy of our book, Rock the Dance Floor, just as a thank you for joining, which has got the 5 big areas of DJing and how to get up to speed quickly in all of them. And if you're ready to learn DJing from the most respected DJ school in the business, hey, that's us as well. You'll find over on the website details of our complete DJ course, which is a great place to start, but also our all access pass, which gets you everything. It's a phenomenal investment in your DJing. If you're a hobby DJ, if you're returning to DJing, if you're a semi-pro, or you're just an enthusiast, come take a look. Meanwhile, for me, Phil, here in the Digital DJ Tips studio, until I see you next time, get good, get out there, make the moments. Bye for now.